But first, let's talk about what the president is facing. Questions from the press corps this afternoon during his first formal news conference since November of last year. CBSN will bring you his remarks live starting at 4 p.m. Eastern. The event comes amid stalled efforts to pass his Build Back Better Act and as Democrats in the Senate brace for a likely failure on passing voting rights reform. Mr. Biden's approval rating stands at 44%. It's been in the 40s since last fall. Ed O'Keefe is standing by at the White House for us to get into this. Ed, good to see you, my friend. So what are you expecting? You know, the pitfall for a sitting president of the United States, Ed, as you know, is the White House announced this press conference a couple of weeks ago. So it's given you and the rest of the press corps many days to think about what you want to ask this president because you haven't had the chance as often as you'd like.
Yeah, and we should point out the distinction to folks because they say to themselves, doesn't he take questions every so often? And the answer is yes, but the problem is he's taking them with a helicopter buzzing out back before or after he gets on it, or in the Oval Office when he's alongside somebody else and the staff starts shouting at us to get out of the room. This is the more formal, Q&A, take a few questions from one person, move on to the next. And these moments have a real ability to redirect, reshape perceptions of what he's up to, how he's handling the job. And you can go back through, especially recent modern history, when key questions have been asked of presidents in these settings and how it can really change the direction or the thought on things amongst Americans. This is a chastened White House who understands after weeks, if not months, of bad polling, that they've got to recalibrate a little bit and better explain things to the American public. If you think about what he's been able to accomplish in the past calendar year, trillions of dollars in federal spending to boost the American economy, to put states and cities back on the right footing as they get out of this pandemic and into the economic recovery that continues. Obviously the unpopular, but the president says essential decision to remove U.S. military forces from Afghanistan. The passage of the big infrastructure deal, which used to be a very basic congressional task, but in recent years have been quite more Herculean. And then adding dozens of federal judges to the bench that reflect a diversity of background and experience that hasn't been on the federal bench before. So those are the things he's likely to highlight. And he'll also talk about some of the more recent developments in the fight against the pandemic as he tries to sort of look ahead into what's expected to be a tumultuous year on the campaign trail here in Washington and across society as we see where this pandemic heads and hopefully get back to some kind of a new normal.
As our old colleague and friend Mark Knoller tweeted, Ed, as you probably saw, by his count, President Biden's press conference today will be his second formal solo news conference at the White House. He's had 5 solo news conferences while on foreign trips and 2 at the White House. And I also checked out a American Presidency Project graph that showed that by the first year in office, President Bush had done 14, President Obama 16, former President Trump 21, Joe Biden 9. Why so long? What is the comm shop saying about that?
This is it's the comm shop that seems to like to keep him away from us, frankly. This is somebody who engaged reporters every day when he was a senator, did so on a pretty regular basis when he was vice president, certainly did so during key moments of his presidential campaign, and over the past year has been far more stage managed and kept from reporters because it's easier to control the movement of a president. And you only get these one-off moments where the audio may not be great, where he may not entirely hear us, where we may not entirely hear his answer because he's wearing a mask. And so he, I believe, in the observation of this reporter at least, has struggled to get the message out because they haven't let him. They haven't put him in these moments where reporters end up asking questions that are on the minds of people across the country, that may not be questions he wants to entertain, but that are, again, on the minds of people across the country wondering about certain things. And it gives him an opportunity to explain himself. This is a White House that believes that, social media, less traditional or newer forms of media are better ways to reach voters. I think what they often forget, however, is that there are tens of millions of Americans who rely especially on television and radio still to get their information on a regular basis, even if they're still working from home or stuck at home. And those are outlets that haven't necessarily had an opportunity to speak with him directly on a regular basis, certainly compared to his predecessors. Now, some may argue Donald Trump overdid it, or that Barack Obama did too many interviews. But certainly people, I think, had a better understanding of where they stood on issues, and they had the opportunity to explain themselves. So let's see if that starts to shift. Part of the problem, of course, is that every time the president does, almost every time he does one of these kinds of exchanges, there's something said that later has to be clarified by his aides, and it takes a day or two to clean that up, and it adds to the perception that perhaps, you know, he's just not very good at sharing his thoughts. But it seems like, based on what we've learned and based on what's been reported, that this is going to be part of the, at least early part of this year, trying to do a better job of explaining, defending, and selling what's been done and what they're hoping to do.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot of questions specifically, Ed, as you know, around one of the issues that the president has been talking about for quite some time. As you know, the Senate's gearing up for potential cloture vote today on the voting rights bill. No Republican support. It's going to fail. It's not going to get the 60 votes needed to end a GOP filibuster. The president campaigned on his ability to compromise, his ability to whip votes when he was in the United States Senate. You spoke to some activists in Atlanta, and I was struck by the one gentleman who said to you, with all that Joe Biden brings to the table, that was his pitch to the American people. Okay, Republicans from a Democratic perspective may be a lost cause, but two members of your own party, how are you not able to whip those votes? So what are the Democrats expected to do, and what's to be gained for doing this today?
They believe that they will get credit, at least from their base of support, for at least trying. And if you look at CBS News polling that's out this week, while overwhelmingly people would prefer a focus on economic issues, a majority of people say the Biden administration's focused about the right amount, or maybe not enough, on issues of voting rights and access. When you look at the overall, there's more concern about this among Democrats and to some extent independents, less so among Republicans and right-leaning independents. So to some extent, it's a base motivating exercise, right? Got to get them on board, got to show them that you tried, and explain through the actions that will be taken today that result in defeat and failure, that that's part of the reason why you got to make sure there are more Democrats in Congress. Whether that's a convincing enough argument, we'll see. White House says at some point in the near future, if this fails as expected, they'll try to take some form of executive action. What that is, what more can be done is unclear, especially at a time when there have been at least 19 mostly Republican-controlled states, although New York is one of them, to have passed restrictive voting measures since the 2020 elections. And most of those, so far at least, have survived legal challenges or are still facing some, either from civil rights organizations, other groups, or even the federal government. So in the face of that, and knowing that the clock is ticking towards November and this year's elections, Democrats felt the need they have to do this, but don't be surprised if they focus in the coming weeks on trying to revive Build Back Better, or the elements of what was in that big plan, to try to see if something can be passed by the spring, to reflect the fact that our polling and others have shown bread and butter issues, dealing with inflation, making sure the economy is on the rebound, are bigger priorities and urgent matters for so many Americans.
All right, Ed, last question. The government's website for free rapid tests is officially live. It actually went live a little earlier than expected, running smoothly. One of the things that I was heartened by, Ed, I don't know if you saw this, but how many people were sharing the link to the website? I mean, even my mom sent it to me, which I thought was pretty remarkable because my mom's not really on the internet. But what are you hearing about how the White House hopes that this will at least stop and slow the spread of Omicron?
Right. Well, covidtests.gov, covidtests.gov. If you're watching us on your phone, drop us into the little window and go over to your web browser, plug it in, and order the test, and you'll be able to do so by the time I finish answering this question, based on the experience of folks I know who tried to sign up. They believe this is the way to get those at-home tests into the hands of as many Americans who need them. Each residence is eligible for up to 4 per order. The Postal Service is how they will get to you, and they're advising it could take 7 to 12 days to get to you. So if you're thinking that's not long enough or that's too long, look, remember, these tests are mostly designed, the at-home ones, to be taken at a moment when you think you've got symptoms. So they're kind of sort of designed to be kept in the kitchen drawer maybe, or your desk drawer and your bedside table, and only pulled out if you or someone you know or that's with you has the symptoms, to try to get a sense of how infected you may be or if you're negative. And that is what the administration is hoping, is that people will sign up for these, have them if need be, use them, order them again if they need more, and just sort of now have established an even better, more effective way, they believe, for people to get these tests. Separate of that, this morning they've announced plans to distribute about 400 N95 masks, the non-surgical kind, similar to this one, that will be available for free at community health centers and pharmacies across the country. Mostly the places where people are getting tested or vaccinated right now. Again, there the idea being that these masks are now considered by medical experts and the CDC to be more effective at blocking Omicron, especially since it's so contagious. And so by going to pick those up and having them for free, that may give people a few days of relief. How many you're going to get exactly, how often you can go and get them, that's less clear and probably up to each of the individual places that get them. But again, another example of the federal government doing what it can do best, bulk purchasing, and then figuring out ways to distribute those purchases across the country to communities that need it as people continue to fight this. As Omicron starts to decline here in the east, of course, it's spreading rapidly out west. They believe that both of these steps will help people as that continues.
Yeah, the N95 mass distribution is huge, Ed, in addition to the test, just because people have tried to get them. And if you go on to Amazon or other sites, you're not always sure if the mask that you're getting is legit, because a lot of them come from outside of the United States.
Exactly.
So this is a big deal. Ed O'Keefe for us at the White House. Ed, I can't wait to see you and the rest of the press corps in action at 4 p.m. We'll look forward to it.
Take care.